father's will wasn't just a document, it was a bomb primed to explode our family into a million jagged pieces. In a rain-soaked Seattle courtroom, the judge's gavel crashed like thunder, sealing our fate. $75 million hidden in shadows had torn us apart. Margaret, my mother, wept her trust in my father. William shattered. My sister Emily stared ahead defiant, as if she'd known his secrets all along. I clutched a faded photo of us, the Carters, from a time when love, not money, defined us. Outside, news vans circled their headlines screaming, "Seattle Tycoon's Fortune Sparks Family War." How did we get here? It started with one meeting, one piece of paper, and a truth none of us were ready for. Rain battered the glass walls of our Lake Washington mansion, as if Seattle itself mourned my father, William Carter. He was gone at 52, a heart attack, stealing him in the night. I sat in the living room, the sleek leather furniture cold against my skin, staring at a photo of us hiking in the Cascades, Mom. Emily, Dad, and me, James, grinning like the world couldn't touch us. That was before the will. Before the bomb that would shatter everything. Mom. Margaret sat across from me, her hands twisting a tissue into knots. At 48, her warm hazel eyes, once full of laughter, were clouded with grief. Emily, my 26-year-old sister, perched on the couch's edge, her sharp jaw set, her dark hair pulled into a tight bun. She'd always been the driven one, building her tech startup with a fire Dad admired. I was 30, a software engineer, steady, practical Dad's anchor, or so I thought. Today we were here to hear his final words delivered by Thomas Reed, our family lawyer. Thomas entered his gray suit crisp against the mansion's muted tones. He carried a leather folder, his face heavy with something more than sympathy. "James, Margaret, Emily," he said, his voice low, "this won't be easy." He opened the folder, revealing Dad's will, and my stomach twisted. Dad was a quiet man, a tech investor who shunned the spotlight. I expected a modest estate, maybe enough to keep his small firm running with me taking over. I was wrong. Dead wrong. William left an estate valued at $75 million. Thomas said, his words landing like a sledgehammer. Mom gasped, the tissue falling to the floor. Emily's eyes flickered, but she stayed still, unnervingly calm. 75 million. Dad, who wore flannel shirts and drove a beat-up Subaru, had hidden a fortune. "It's from investments," Thomas explained. "Silent stakes in Silicon Valley startups, offshore accounts, real estate." He kept it discreet. Discreet, that was a kind way to say deceptive. My mind raced, all those late nights Dad spent working the trips he never explained. Had they built this empire? Why hide it from us, from Mom, who'd stood by him for 25 years? I looked at her, her face, pale lips trembling. 75 million, she whispered, and he never told me. Thomas cleared his throat, pushing his glasses up. There's more. He read the will's terms, and each word carved a deeper wound. Emily and I were to split 80%, $60 million, while Mom got a trust fund, a measly $5 million tied up in restrictions. The remaining $10 million per a codicil was for a charitable foundation, its purpose vague. A codicil. Since when did Dad care about charity? This wasn't the man I knew, the one who taught me to code at 10, who laughed over burgers at Dick's Drive-In. Mom stood her chair, scraping the hardwood. "This is a mistake," she said, voice breaking. "William wouldn't do this. He wouldn't sideline me." Her eyes burned with betrayal, not just at Dad, but at the life she thought they'd shared. Emily, though, leaned forward, her voice steady. "Mom, Dad had his reasons. We should trust him. Trust him." Her calmness was a slap, hinting she knew more than she let on. Had Dad confided in her? The thought stung. "Emily, how can you say that?" I asked, my voice sharper than I meant. "This doesn't add up." Dad wasn't secretive, but was he? Memories flickered, his locked office, hushed phone calls. I chalked it up to stress, not a double life. Emily met my gaze unflinching. James, he was protecting us. You'll see. Protecting us, or controlling us. Mom turned to Thomas, desperation in her voice. Is this legal? Can we fight it? Thomas sighed, his fingers tracing the will's edges. It's binding, Margaret, but you could contest it. Mental capacity, undue influence, there are angles. It's a long road. Mom nodded, resolve hardening her features. Then we fight. As Thomas packed his folder, the room felt smaller, the air thick with unspoken accusations. Mom's grief was a tidal wave drowning her trust in Dad. Emily's composure was a wall shutting us out. And me, I was caught torn between Mom's pain and the father I thought I knew. Why, Dad? Why hide this? Why divide us? That night, as rain lashed the mansion, Mom paced, already planning her case. Emily retreated to her room, her silence louder than any argument. I stood at the window, Seattle's skyline blurred by the storm. The will wasn't just paper, it was a fault line cracking our family apart. And I had no idea how deep the fracture would go. The rain didn't stop mirroring the storm brewing in our Lake Washington mansion. Mom Margaret hadn't slept, her eyes red from tears and rage. She'd spent the night poring over old bank statements, searching for clues to Dad's hidden $75 million fortune. He lied to me. James, she said, her voice raw, clutching a mug of cold coffee. I wanted to comfort her, but my own doubts about Dad. William Carter, the man I thought I knew, choked my words. Emily, my sister, was already gone off to her startup's office in Pioneer Square, as if the will's bombshell was just another Tuesday. By noon, we were in Thomas Reed's downtown Seattle law firm, the Space Needle looming through the window like a silent judge. Thomas's office was all polished wood and leather, a stark contrast to the chaos we brought. Mom sat rigid, her hands clenched, ready to fight. I slouched in a chair, my software engineer's brain scrambling to debug this mess. Emily arrived late, her tailored blazer screaming confidence, but her tight smile betrayed something guilt knowledge. I couldn't tell. Margaret, contesting the will is possible. Thomas began, his voice steady. But it's a battle. We'd need evidence. William wasn't in his right mind, or was coerced. Mom leaned forward, desperate. He wasn't himself, Thomas. Those last years he was distant, secretive. This codicil, this fortune, it's not him. The codicil, that $20 million for a mysterious foundation, gnawed at me too. Dad never mentioned charity, never even donated to the PTA. Why now? Thomas nodded, jotting notes. We'll dig into his mental state, his business dealings. I've hired forensic accountants to trace the assets, Silicon Valley startups, offshore accounts properties in Bellevue and Bainbridge Island. Mom's eyes widened. Properties. He told me we were barely breaking even. Her voice cracked. Betrayal cutting deeper. 25 years of marriage, and Dad had built an empire behind her back. Emily, silent until now, spoke up, her tone cool. Mom, Dad knew what he was doing. The will, the foundation. It's his vision. We should honor it, honor it. Her words were a match to Mom's fuse. Honor. What? Emily, Mom snapped, standing. A man who sidelined me, who gave you and James millions while I'm left with scraps. Emily didn't flinch. He trusted us to carry his legacy. Maybe he thought you couldn't handle it. The room froze. I stared at Emily, my sister, the one I'd shared childhood secrets with. Emily, that's enough, I said, my voice low but sharp. Mom's hurting. Can't you see that Emily's eyes met mine, unyielding? James, I'm not the enemy. Dad had reasons. You'll understand soon. Understand what? Her cryptic calm was infuriating, hinting at secrets she shared with Dad, secrets I was never privy to. Thomas raised a hand, ever the peacemaker. "Let's focus. Margaret, we'll file the contest, but we need to talk strategy, depositions, witnesses." Mom nodded, but her gaze stayed on Emily, a mix of hurt and suspicion. I felt like a rope in a tug-of-war pulled between Mom's pain and Emily's defiance. I had to do something. "Let's meet at home tonight," I said. "No lawyers, just us. We need to talk." Mom agreed, reluctant. Emily shrugged, non-committal. That evening I drove to the mansion. Seattle's skyline fading in my rear view. I called Laura Bennett, Dad's old business partner, hoping for answers. Her voice was crisp, guarded. "James, the codicil wasn't about money. William wanted you all to learn selflessness, to build something bigger than yourselves." "Selflessness, Dad." Who skipped my high school graduation for a meeting. I pressed her, but she hung up, leaving me with more questions. Dinner was a disaster. The mansion's dining room, once filled with laughter, was a battleground. Mom accused Emily of colluding with Dad. Her voice rising. "You knew about the money, didn't you?" Emily's fork clattered. "I knew he was planning something big, Mom, but not this. He trusted me to follow through. Follow through. On what I tried to mediate, but their words were knives slicing any hope of peace. "Stop it!" I shouted, slamming my hand on the table. "We're a family, not enemies." But the silence that followed was worse than the yelling. As Mom stormed out, Emily grabbed her coat, muttering about work. I sat alone, the chandelier's light casting shadows like cracks in our bond. Laura's words echoed selflessness legacy. Was Dad testing us, or had he misjudged us entirely? The fight was just beginning, and I feared the worst was yet to come. The Seattle sky was a bruise, heavy with rain as I drove to the King County courtroom. Our family's fracture, born in the quiet of our Lake Washington mansion, had spilled into the open, raw, and bleeding. Mom Margaret sat beside me, her hands trembling, clutching a scarf as if it could shield her from the truth. Emily, my sister, was already there, her face a mask of resolve, her startup's logo pin gleaming on her blazer. The will. Dad's $75 million betrayal had turned us into strangers, and now the world was watching. Inside the courtroom buzzed reporters, scribbling their cameras trained on us like vultures. It wasn't just the money, $75 million, hidden by William Carter tech investor, father liar, that drew them. It was the scandal. Last night's dinner, that shouting match in our dining room, had been recorded, leaked and splashed across X. The Carter clash, they called it, a viral audio of Mom accusing Emily of collusion, her voice cracking with betrayal. "You knew, Emily. You plotted with him." Emily's cold reply. "He trusted me." Mom played on repeat. Seattle's latest obsession. News vans camped outside our mansion, headlines screaming, tech fortune tears, family apart. I felt sick, my software engineer's logic useless against this chaos. Who leaked it? A neighbor. A hacked phone. It didn't matter. Our pain was public. Our grief a spectacle. Mom avoided my eyes, humiliated. Emily sat straighter, defiant, as if daring the world to judge her. Thomas Reed, our lawyer, leaned in, his voice low. "Stay calm, James. The court's about testimony, not tabloids." But the tabloids were winning, turning our lives into a circus. The judge called Mom first. She took the stand, her schoolteacher's poise crumbling. "William changed," she said, voice shaking. "He grew secretive, locked himself in his office. I thought it was stress, not millions." She described their marriage, 25 years of shared dreams, now tainted by his hidden empire, startups, offshore accounts, properties she never knew. "He sidelined me," she whispered, tears falling. "Why?" The room was silent, her pain a weight we all felt. I wanted to hug her to fix this, but I was as lost as she was. Emily went next. Her steps measured her voice steady. Dad wasn't hiding to hurt us, she said, eyes locked on the judge. He built that fortune to secure our future, to test us. The will, the codicil, it's his challenge to rise above greed. A challenge. Her words were a knife twisting in Mom's wounds. He trusted me to carry his vision. Emily added, glancing at me. Not Mom. Trusted her. What about us? The reporters scribbled faster, eating up her defiance. Mom's face crumpled, betrayed again. I took the stand, my throat tight. I don't know why Dad did this, I said, honest, raw. He was my hero, taught me to code, to dream. But this will, it's tearing us apart. I looked at Mom, then Emily. The codicil, the foundation, it's supposed to mean something. Can't we honor that and each other? My voice cracked, pleading. The judge nodded, but the reporters didn't care about unity. They wanted blood. Then Laura Bennett, Dad's old business partner, testified. Her sharp eyes scanned the room. William feared his wealth would ruin you, she said. The codicil, that $20 million foundation, was his way to teach selflessness, to force you to look beyond money. Selflessness. Dad, who missed my games for deals. Her words hit hard, painting a man I barely recognized. Mom shook her head, muttering, "He didn't trust me." Emily's jaw tightened, as if Laura confirmed her beliefs. I felt a spark of hope. Maybe the foundation was Dad's redemption, but it flickered against Mom's pain. Outside, paparazzi swarmed, shouting questions. Margaret, did you know about the money, Emily? Are you hiding more secrets? I shielded Mom, her sobs muffled against my coat. Emily pushed through head high, but her eyes betrayed fear. The mansion was no refuge, its glass walls exposing us to drones, cameras' eyes. That night I found Mom staring at old photos, Emily locked in her room. The courtroom had bared our souls, but the world's gaze burned deeper. Dad's will wasn't just a fault line, it was a wildfire, and we were burning. Seattle's rain had turned to a drizzle, but the storm inside our family raged on. The Lake Washington mansion, once our sanctuary, felt like a pressure cooker, every glance between Mom, Emily, and me loaded with unspoken accusations. Margaret, my mother, sat at the kitchen island, her fingers tracing the edges of a legal pad, filled with notes for her fight against Dad's will. Emily, my sister, was holed up in her room, her startup's future wobbling under the weight of our public scandal. James stood in the middle, a software engineer out of my depth, trying to code a solution for a family breaking apart. Thomas Reed's law firm downtown was our last hope for peace. His office, with its view of the Puget Sound, was a neutral ground, but neutrality was a fantasy. Mom walked in, her face set, her schoolteacher's grace replaced by a warrior's resolve. I want half, she said, voice sharp. William owed me that for 25 years. Emily followed, her blazer crisp, her eyes cold. Dad's will is clear, Mom. Fighting it disrespects him. I winced. Her words were gasoline on Mom's fire. Thomas spread his hands, calm as ever. Let's try mediation. A trial will gut you emotionally, financially. He proposed options: split the $75 million differently. Share the codicil's $20 million foundation fund, or settle out of court. I latched on to the foundation idea, seeing a glimmer of Dad's intense selflessness, Laura had called it. What if we each take a third of the foundation money? I suggested, hopeful. We'd still honor Dad, but Mom gets more. Mom's eyes narrowed. James, that's not enough. He betrayed me. Emily scoffed. It's more than Dad wanted. You're rewriting his legacy. The room crackled. Mom stood pacing. Emily, you act like you knew his every thought. Were you in on this? Emily's face hardened. He trusted me with his vision. Mom, not his secrets. Trusted her. The words stung, echoing the leaked audio still burning up X, where Mom's accusations. "You plotted with him," had turned us into Seattle's soap opera. The Carter clash was everywhere, talk shows dissecting our fights. Emily's startup losing investors, neighbors whispering as Mom walked by. Public shame clung to us like damp air. I tried again, voice low. "We're a family. Can't we find a middle ground?" But middle ground was a myth. Mom wanted justice for a marriage she now saw as a lie. Emily wanted to prove she was Dad's true heir, her ambition tied to his will. Thomas suggested a 40-30-30 split, but Mom shot it down. "It's not about money, it's about right." And Emily walked out muttering, "This is pointless." Mediation collapsed each session a fresh wound. The scandal's glare made it worse. Paparazzi hounding our mansion, their lenses catching Mom's tears. Emily's scowl. Alone with Thomas, I slumped in his office chair. "We're falling apart," I said, voice breaking. He sighed, his calm cracking. "James, a trial might force a resolution, but it'll cost you more than money. Cost us what? Our bond, our sanity." I thought of Dad, his quiet smile, his secrets. Had he known his $75 million would do this? As I left, the city's skyline loomed gray and unforgiving. The court would decide now, and I feared what we'd lose when it did. The King County courtroom smelled of polished wood and tension, its high windows framing a Seattle sky still weeping rain. I, James Carter, sat between Mom and Emily. My hands clenched, my heart pounding like a drum. Margaret, my mother, stared at the judge, her face a map of grief and resolve, her scarf twisted tight in her lap. Emily, my sister, sat rigid, her startup's logo pin catching the light, her eyes fixed ahead as if she could will the outcome. The reporters in the back whispered their pens, scratching hungry for the next chapter of the Carter clash. Dad's will, $75 million of secrets, had brought us here to this moment where a stranger in a black robe would decide our family's fate. The judge, a woman with sharp eyes and a voice like steel, began. "This case is a tragedy not just of wealth, but of trust." Her words cut deep, naming what we'd lost. She'd heard it all. Mom's tear-soaked testimony of Dad's secrecy, Emily's fierce defense of his vision, my desperate plea for unity. She knew about the codicil, that $20 million foundation. Laura Bennett swore was Dad's bid for our redemption. She'd seen the viral audio, our dining room screams plastered across X, turning our pain into Seattle's spectacle. Now she held the gavel, and we held our breath. "The will, as written, is legally sound," she said, and Emily's shoulders relaxed just a fraction. Mom's breath hitched, her hand grabbing mine. But the judge continued, "Equity demands adjustment." My pulse raced. Adjustment. She laid out the verdict, each word a stone, reshaping our future. Mom would receive 40%, $30 million, acknowledging her role in William Carter's life, her 25 years of love and labor. Emily and I each got 25%, $18.75 million, enough to secure our futures, but not the lion's share Dad intended. The codicil's $20 million was reduced to $7.5 million for the foundation, and I was named trustee tasked with bringing Dad's dream to life. One final mandate: family counseling, to mend what money had broken. Mom exhaled, relief and exhaustion warring in her eyes. Emily's jaw tightened, her silence louder than any protest. I felt the weight of the trustee role, a tether to Dad's legacy I wasn't sure I wanted. The reporters surged, shouting questions. "Margaret, is this justice? James, will you honor the foundation?" But Thomas Reed ushered us out, his arm a shield against the chaos. Outside, paparazzi swarmed, their flashes blinding. Mom's sobs were soft, Emily's steps clipped, and I just wanted to disappear. We fled to our cabin in the Cascade Mountains, a wooden refuge tucked among pines far from Seattle's glare. The air was crisp, the silence heavy. Inside by a crackling fire, we faced each other. No lawyers, no cameras, just us, raw, broken human. Mom spoke first, her voice trembling. I fought because I lost myself, James. William's secrets, they made me question everything. Her eyes, red from tears, begged understanding. Emily shifted, her defiance crumbling. I defended Dad because I needed to prove I was enough, she whispered. He believed in me, but I'm scared I failed him. Her vulnerability hit me like a wave. Emily scared I'd never seen it. I took a breath, my voice shaky. I just wanted us to be a family again. I failed you both. The words burned my guilt, laid bare. The cabin's walls seemed to hold us, absorbing our confessions. Mom reached for Emily's hand, a tentative bridge. Emily didn't pull away. I thought of Dad, his quiet strength, his flaws. Had he known this verdict would force us to see each other, or had he underestimated the cost? The verdict was no victory, just a mirror reflecting our fractures. Mom's $30 million couldn't erase her hurt. Emily's share couldn't fill her doubts. My role as trustee felt like a burden, not a gift. As we sat, the fire's glow softening our edges. I saw a flicker of hope, a chance to rebuild. Not as we were, but as we could be. The court had spoken, but our story wasn't over. It was up to us now, and that scared me more than any gavel's fall. The Seattle summer sun broke through the clouds, casting a soft glow over our Lake Washington mansion, but the warmth couldn't fully pierce the chill between us. Mom. Margaret stood in the kitchen, her hands still no longer twisting scarves or legal pads. Her fight for Dad's $75 million estate was over the verdict, carving new lines in our family. $30 million for her, $75 million each for Emily and me. James, and $7.5 million for a foundation I was now tasked to lead. The court had mandated counseling, a lifeline we desperately needed. Our scars ran deep, and I feared money alone would never heal them. We met Dr. Rachel Nguyen in her cozy Seattle therapy office, a small space with warm wood floors and a view of Elliott Bay. Rachel, with her calm eyes and steady voice, felt like a guide through a storm. This isn't about the will, she said, setting 3 notebooks on the table. It's about who you are to each other. Let's start there. Mom sat stiffly, her grief a heavy coat. Emily. My sister crossed her arms, her startup's fire dimmed by the verdict's weight. I slouched, the trustee role pressing on me like a boulder. Could we rebuild? Or was our family a photo of Cascade hikes and laughter lost forever? Rachel handed us pens. Write a letter to William, she said. Say what you couldn't when he was here. Mom's pen froze, her breath catching. I don't know where to start, she whispered. Rachel's smile was gentle. Start with the truth. Mom wrote, tears smudging the ink. Her words a flood of love and betrayal. William, you broke my heart, she read aloud. Voice cracking. 25 years and you hid everything. I loved you, but I'm lost. Her vulnerability hit me hard, a reminder of the woman who'd bandaged my knees, now wounded herself. Emily went next, her voice softer than I'd ever heard. Dad, I fought for your vision because I wanted to make you proud, she said, eyes down. But I'm scared I'm not enough. Scared Emily, the fearless entrepreneur, was unraveling her defiance, a mask for doubt. I gripped my notebook, my own words spilling out. Dad, I idolized you. I read throat tight, but your secrets tore us apart. I'm angry, but I miss you. The room was heavy, our truths hanging like mist over Puget Sound. Rachel nodded, her silence giving us space to breathe. Outside therapy, the Carter clash lingered. The viral audio. Mom's accusations, Emily's cold replies still echoed on X, though the buzz was fading. Emily's startup faced skeptical investors, her pitch meetings strained. Mom avoided neighbors, their whispers stinging. I shielded them from paparazzi, but the mansion's glass walls offered no privacy. One night I called a family dinner, hoping to reclaim our dining room from its battlefield past. Mom cooked Dad's favorite lasagna, the aroma a fragile bridge to better days. Emily arrived hesitant, her blazer swapped for a sweater. We ate the clink of forks, loud in the silence. "Remember Dad's terrible puns," I said, testing the waters. Mom's lips twitched. "Awful," she said, a small laugh breaking through. Emily joined in, mimicking Dad's groan-worthy bite-me joke from my coding days. Laughter, tentative but real, filled the room, a spark of who we'd been. It wasn't healing, not yet, but it was a start. I saw Rachel's question in their eyes. Who are we without the money? I didn't know, but I wanted to find out. As trustee, I met Laura Bennett again, Dad's old partner, to plan the foundation. Over coffee in Capitol Hill, she leaned in, her voice firm. William wanted impact, James, a legacy beyond wealth. Impact. The idea stirred me, a way to honor Dad without his secrets. I envisioned a community center in Rainier Valley, Seattle's underserved heart, a place for kids like I'd been coding dreams into reality. I pitched it to Mom and Emily, nervous. Mom's eyes softened. "It's what William should have done openly," she said. Emily nodded, her first real agreement. "Let's do it." Rachel pushed us further, asking us to share one hope for our family. Mom's was simple trust. Again, Emily's was raw. To be seen, not judged. Mine was a plea to stay together. Each word was a brick rebuilding what we'd lost. The mansion felt less like a cage, its glass walls reflecting possibility. Healing was no straight line, but we were moving step by painful step towards something new. Dad's will had broken us, but maybe, just maybe, we could forge a legacy stronger than his secrets. The Seattle autumn painted the Cascades in gold and crimson, a backdrop of renewal, as our family stood on the edge of something new. The Lake Washington mansion, once a battlefield, hummed with quiet hope. Mom. Margaret smiled more, her grief softening, like the morning mist over Puget Sound. Emily, my sister, carried herself lighter, her startup rebounding, her walls coming down. James Carter felt the weight of Dad's $7.5 million foundation as both a burden and a beacon. The court's verdict, $30 million for Mom, $18.75 million each for Emily and me, had closed one chapter, but the mandated counseling with Dr. Rachel Nguyen was opening another. We weren't whole, not yet, but we were trying. Today was the launch of the William Carter Community Center in Rainier Valley, Seattle's beating heart, where dreams often fought to breathe. The building gleamed, its glass facade, a nod to Dad's love of modern design, but its purpose was warmer, a hub for kids to code, create, and hope. I stood at the podium, my trustee role no longer a chain, but a key. Mom and Emily flanked me, their presence a silent vow to rebuild. The crowd, local leaders, families, even a few reporters, watched their phones out. But this time the story was ours to tell. William Carter believed in impact. I said, my voice steady, echoing across the room. This center is his legacy, and ours, a place where kids can build futures, not walls. I glanced at Mom, her eyes shining, and Emily, her nod, small but real. The ribbon fell. Cheers erupted, and local news cameras caught it all, reframing the Carter clash as redemption. A headline on X later read, "Seattle family turns feud into hope." For once, the spotlight felt right. After we walked the center's halls, where kids already tinkered with computers, their laughter a sound Dad would have loved. Mom touched a plaque reading, "William Carter Foundation." her fingers lingering. "He'd be proud, James," she said, voice soft. Emily, usually so guarded, added, "This is what he meant. Something bigger." I saw Dad in my mind, his quiet smile, his flaws, his secrets, and felt a pang. He'd wanted this, but why hide it? The question lingered, but it no longer cut. We drove to the Cascades for a hike, a new tradition to reclaim our roots. The trail wound through pines, the air sharp with earth and memory. Mom led her steps surer than in months, Emily in sneakers. Instead of her usual heels, laughed when she slipped, letting me catch her. "Thanks, big brother," she said, and I heard the sister I'd missed. We stopped at a lookout, Mount Rainier looming, and shared stories of Dad, his terrible camping coffee, his pride when I coded my first app, his faith in Emily's dreams. No mention of money, just love, messy and real. At the trail's end, we sat on a log, the sun dipping low. "Let's keep this," Mom said, her voice firm. "Monthly hikes, dinners, no secrets." Emily nodded, her eyes meeting ours. "Deal. I'm done hiding." I felt a knot loosen in my chest. We weren't the family in that old Cascade photo, but we were building something new, stronger, forged in truth. Back at the mansion, we gathered for dinner, lasagna, steaming, a nod to Dad. Over wine, we planned the center's future coding camps, art classes, scholarships. Emily suggested a startup incubator, her fire back. Mom proposed a garden for peace. I saw Dad's codicil in them selflessness impact, and knew we were honoring it, not just his money, but his hope. Dr. Rachel's lessons echoed, and I thought of what we'd learned, truths I'd carry forever. Transparency builds trust. Dad's secrets sparked our war. Open hearts ended it. I've seen it in my own life. Honesty, however hard, binds us closer. Wealth isn't happiness. That $75 million nearly broke us. But love, not money, mended us. I know now that chasing dollars blinds you to what lasts: connection, purpose. Forgiveness heals. Counseling taught us to let go, to see each other's pain. I've learned grudges chain you. Forgiveness sets you free. Community impact lasts. The center gave us purpose, a legacy beyond bank accounts. I found joy in giving back, even in small ways, knowing it ripples. We raised our glasses, the clink a promise. To U.S. Mom, said, her smile real. And to never losing this again. Emily's eyes glistened, and I felt Dad's presence, not as a shadow, but a light. The mansion's glass walls reflected our faces, a family scarred, but whole. The will had tested us, broken us, but we'd rebuilt, not with money, but with trust, love, and a center that would outlive us all. Our legacy was just beginning, and for the first time I wasn't afraid of what came next.